Hello and welcome back to the Villa Filler podcast. I am your solo host, Dan Wiseman, to bring you this Burnley preview. There's been far too many of these recently where it's Dan or I on our own. He did the Norwich review just last weekend because I was in a stag in Benidorm and was definitely not in the right place, neither physically or mentally, to do that podcast. But he did a fine job. I'm sure you'll all agree. And then just a couple of weeks ago, I did the Spurs game at home. So he definitely had the look of the draw on that one. But yes, unfortunately, it is I, Dan Wiseman, to bring you this Burnley preview. We're going to get right into it. It's going to be short and sweet, and we're going to give you all you need to know ahead of this weekend's game. But first, here's a word from our sponsor.
This video is sponsored by the wonderful guys over at OneFootball. It is the place to get all of the most up-to-date football news, scores, articles, live updates. You couldn't ask for more. Dan, we use this app every single day of our lives, and they've been kind enough to sponsor us here at the Villa Filler again.
Yeah, it powers the podcast, mate. It's my go-to place for live scores, stats, and news from 200 leagues, 12 different languages. It's got the lot, mate.
So, guys, if you check out OneFootball using the link in the top of the description, it'll help us out, it'll help you guys out, and it'll help you just enjoy the game that little bit more. Be like Dan and I, download OneFootball.
So yes, guys, you already know. OneFootball is the place for all your stats, live updates, news, everything that you could need from the beautiful game. It's what powers the Villa Filler podcast, not only in terms of their fantastic sponsorship of our show, but also in terms of that's where we get all of our numbers. That's where we get all of the facts and stats that we brief you guys with in every episode. So make sure you hit that link in the description and download the app because it means more than you could ever imagine. So speaking of which, let's give you the rundown. There's not too much to talk about with the Villa at the moment, is there? We're in a bit of a mire. I mean, even that 2-0 win against Norwich, it didn't feel like, it didn't really alleviate too much. I hate to say it, but we're just going through the motions now, aren't we? Just getting there into the end of the season. And I hate that because whilst, yes, in theory, there's not much to play for. There is in the same sense. There's, I said this on the podcast a few weeks ago, there's pride and there's moments and that, that Norwich game could and maybe should have been a 4-5-0 job. And that's something to remember for us fans. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's not long ago we couldn't even get in the stadium. So just to be able to go to these games is still a sort of a bit of a pinch me moment for me, at least. So yeah, you still want to see the team give you these performances because, yeah, even though this season, it's not one that will go down and be fondly remembered in the Villa history books, it still had a lot of great moments and there's still a lot of things which for me personally have been some of the happier times I've had supporting the club. So yeah, it's one of those where there are still games to play for. There's still points to put on the board, but this weekend's opponent are going to be doing everything they can to stop us getting those points. It's Burnley. Finally, at long last, this is a fixture that should have been played in December. And I can't believe I'm sat here recording on the 5th of May and it's still not been played. I mean, this is actually the latest into a season that two top flight teams have met for the first time since 1987-88, when Luton and Notts Forest met for the first time on the 13th of May. So they had another week on us, which is incredible to believe. But yep, we've not played Burnley yet. They're still very much an unknown quantity. This game will be very different to how it would have been when it was played originally in December or any time really after that, to be honest with you, when Sean Dyche was still in charge. Everyone sort of questioned that sacking, didn't they? It was all a bit of a furore. People didn't really know why they had done it, but it's all gone quiet on that front, hasn't it? Because Mike Jackson and Ben Mee have done a fantastic job. They've really turned the club around. Their fortunes are completely contrasting. You look at their recent games, wins against Watford, that was massive, wasn't it? They turned that round in after the 83rd minute, I believe, with goals from Jack Cork and Josh Brownhill, gave them the win at Vicarage Road. They've also picked up wins against Wolves, against Southampton, a draw against Burnley. They've won against Everton as well recently, which was, that was a late turnaround as well. So, these guys have really done a fantastic job. Obviously, that some of those results caught the back end of the Dyche era, but they've capitalised on what is a relatively good point for the club. Really, they've now got nominations for Manager of the Month, Goal of the Month, and Player of the Month for April. So that tells you what a revival that Mike Jackson has been doing over at Turf Moor. This is a tough game. And it's one I really wouldn't be surprised if we lost. It's one of those where there's plenty to talk about the opposition and how crucial staying in the Premier League is. You sort of look at the run-in that these three teams in Leeds, Everton and Burnley have got, and I think Burnley have got a pretty good chance of getting out of it, you know. Let me know down below in the comments who you think is going to be staying up this season. For the record, I think Leeds are going down. I think they've got the toughest running. I think Everton are starting to show a bit, and I think their fixture list is kindest, but Leeds have got some tough games coming up. I think we ultimately decide the fate of Burnley is the other way to look at it. Having played them twice, we basically decide whether they go up or whether they go down. And to be honest with you, I think they'll take that. We're not in a great vein of form. We're not, I don't want to say we're on the beach, but we are playing. Next season is already, you know, the focus. All the talk is on the transfer window for us. All the talk is on the contract situations. And so Burnley have an opportunity here to put some points on the board and get, you know, there's 6 points up for grabs against one team. And especially at Turf Moor, you have to imagine that they fancy this one because we don't have a very good record at Turf Moor. Burnley have often triumphed against us. We've won just one of our last 26 away league games against Burnley, drawing 6 and losing 19. The last win was a 2-1 victory in January 2020, which is obviously the game where Ben Mee, now sort of manager of Burnley, injured Wesley. We had the win where Jack scored that fantastic goal, and so that was the one time in 26 games that we beat Burnley. So they'll be right up for this one. They really will. I think you have to sort of look at they published their accounts recently as well, and there's some quite stark readings in there into the relegation clauses, the repayments on a loan that really could be complicated if they don't beat the drop and they do go down. So there's far more to play for Burnley than there is for Villa, and I don't think you need to. I hate using that cliche, like they'll want it more, but there's a good chance that they might. There really is. But for Villa, I think we'll probably see Buendia. I hope so. But the problem is with that is that, you know, it requires Gerrard to drop Coutinho, and I can't see that happening. So there's a lot of problems here for Gerrard really in that front four, because Coutinho, it seems cruel, regardless of his recent performances, which haven't been great. He seems too big of a name to drop onto that bench, really, doesn't he? It doesn't seem right to bench Felipe Coutinho. But you've got guys like Danny Ings, who came on for Leon Bailey and had a fantastic impact. I can't imagine we'll see Bailey in this game, so that's one less sort of out of the equation. But you've got Tim as well, who put in a very good performance. I was very impressed with him against Norwich. So that's someone. Will he anchor the base? Will he? Won't he? It's a very, very difficult trip going away to Turf Moor. We've seen many a top Premier League player go away and struggle up in Lancashire. So it'd be interesting to see if he starts. Obviously, we saw Callum Chambers as well, kept a clean sheet. So I can't imagine we'll change that back line. Imagine we'll see Cal in that back line again. But will Emi Buendia finally find his way back into the side? He's a player that we definitely are better with in the team. I think he's offering right now more than Coutinho. You know, that's not saying he's a better player or anything like that. Maybe he is. But I think it's going to be interesting as to whether he can finally work his way into the side, because it felt a bit cruel, to be honest with you, that he didn't get the start against Norwich. And he came on and he got an impact. I mean, Coutinho has now gone 498 Premier League minutes without a goal contribution. So does that lend him towards a sort of impact sub role, maybe? Because I think we're going to need it. I can't imagine this is going to be a game in which we easily break the deadlock. I think Danny Ings, as I said, does need to come back in. He's got 4 goal contributions in his last 3 games against Burnley, 3 goals and 1 assist against his former clubs. That, you know, he's not only got the recent form for Villa in his favour, but he's also got that previous pedigree against his former club as well. So there's a lot going for Villa in this sense, really. So, guys, let me know what you think. Who starts for Villa? Does Emi Buendia work his way back into the side? Does Ollie Watkins and Danny Ings, do they reunite up top? Or is Danny Ings sort of in that wider role, which we saw him play? Looks like Burnley are going to be without Maxwell Cornet and Jay Rodriguez. So those are 2 players that it looks like they're going to be without. So it'd be interesting to see how they line up. But how do you look at that Villa midfield again? I feel like this is where it's won and lost. John McGinn, Douglas Luiz, Jacob Ramsey, Big Tim. Does he get back in there? Let us know. Hopefully, we see a little bit more of Callum Chambers. I think we look better on the pitch. That's not a slight on Ezri Konsa. It's just, I think, you know, you only have to look at the games that we've played with Callum Chambers in that back line. On the whole, there's been a fair few clean sheets in there. So it'd be very interesting Guys, as I said at the top of the video, make sure you hit that link in the description and download OneFootball. It helped this podcast out absolutely massively. And make sure you're subscribed here on YouTube. We're slowly ticking. It's been a difficult month, but next season we're going to go big. Transfer window, that's our bag with the transfer rumour mill. So look forward to that. You're going to make sure you're subscribed because it's going to be a whole lot of fun here on the Villa podcast. The review will be back to normal. Dan and I, just how you guys like it. I'm very excited to bring that on, guys. And hopefully we're talking about a win, but such is life of the Villa.